What's up,
What's up, everybody?
Welcome back to the Mindset Mogul podcast. We are your hosts, Josh Jacobs and Bradley Mora, and we are here with a Q&A episode for you today. It's been a minute. What's going on, Brad? How you doing, brother?
I am doing good. All things considered, I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be on the pod, grateful for a general sense of health and youth. And I know we're going to talk about a little bit about that today before we jump into the question. So good to be here. Long-winded way to put it.
Love it, man. Yeah, I agree. I love doing these Q&As, and I am also grateful to be here and grateful for a clear mind. Been sober as a MF for a while now, and it feels really good. Not a while, but haven't smoked weed in over a week now, which feels great. Longest I've gone
9 days, I think, since
something like that. All I know is it's the longest I've gone since I was, like a teenager. So feeling
sick.
great, got a ton of energy, and things are going well. So let's talk a little bit about how, before we even jump into the Q&A, I know you hurt yourself the other day. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was in the gym and I had a small tweak in my hamstring from a CrossFit workout. I don't normally do CrossFit, but we were in Los Angeles and we went to this CrossFit gym. And generally in CrossFit,
while you were out too.
Well, so this was like the pre-injury. So then it was in LA doing a workout I don't normally do. CrossFit is just like very like Olympic lift, a lot of motion. So it's a place where you can like hurt yourself if you're not conditioned for it. So I didn't really hurt myself there. I didn't even notice, but I had a tweaked hamstring that like showed up a couple days later from it. Not a big deal. But then I went to our normal gym and it was test day for deadlifts. And so I was going to break 400 for the first time. And it's a 3 rep lift. And on the second lift, I heard my back pop. And I was like, oh boy. And so like dropped the weight and was like kind of in shock. Wasn't sure like if or how bad like that was, but just knew that sounded real funky. And so went home after that in the workout, just because it's not worth it to like, in case you've got like some sort of like basically like a broken back or move something out of place. You don't want to like screw with that. But woke up the next day, definitely very stiff back. And then my hamstring is like fully pulled. So I think what happened was I had the tweak in the hamstring, probably compensated for that on the pull and didn't like brace correctly because I was doing without a belt. And so just threw myself off kilter a little bit. So all things considered, it's definitely a pain in the ass. And I'll probably be immobilized for a couple of weeks. And so now, as I was getting started with the new challenge that we're doing, working out for an hour a day, I need to figure out like how to still do this challenge and how to still be like, I fully intend to get myself to 100 regardless of the injury. There's no pity parties. There's absolutely no excuse that I can't be doing everything else on the list. Also, as soon as I'm like, probably starting tomorrow, like I need to be walking. We'll see. But as soon as I can be doing things, or I'm going to be finding ways to like stay active, even in light of this as I'm recovering. And so honestly, I'm looking at this as it's just another challenge. And if anything, it makes me appreciate good health. I'm super fortunate that this wasn't like a real serious injury that can happen. And the fact that I figured this out now instead of actually like blowing out my back doing something, I'm grateful that this has been a learning lesson without too much consequence. So yeah, I don't think I would have acted like this had we not been doing this podcast, to be honest. I was like ready to have a pity party going and just to like order like junk food for dinner because I was like, fuck it. I'm injured. I need this. And I was like, stop yourself for a second. If we're gonna let that derail how I'm thinking about approaching my entire life in general, like how fragile is that? And so there was a good moment of reflection and clarity where I didn't go down that path. And I'm still doing all the things that I signed up for earlier in the week, except for the cold exposure. I gave myself a couple days on that because I don't know. I should be, apparently warm is better than cold, like right at the outset. But I'm going to start back with the cold exposure today.
Man, well, I love the mindset you have behind this. It's, it's interesting. Like a lot of the guys that I follow, that preach discipline and all these things. Like Andy Frisella, for example, I remember he had shoulder surgery like a year or something ago, and he was posting videos of him lifting 5-pound dumbbells because he's like, look, I can't work out, how I used to, but I could do something. And that's how you were just saying, like, I at least need to be walking or whatever you can do. Or like Ben Newman, another great guy, he went to the hospital. He's in the hospital bed. And I think his wife brought him dumbbells and he couldn't even stand up, but he's just in the hospital bed, just freaking curling. I was like, this is epic. So to hear you have that mindset also is very cool. So I hope you feel better. It sucks, but like you said, it gives you gratitude for it gives you gratitude for having a healthy body in other moments. So, yeah, man, I'm glad it wasn't worse, and hopefully you recover very quickly.
I appreciate it. 100%. Definitely could have been much worse. And, this is, everything's temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, man, let's jump into the Q&A. We have a question today from Jeremiah. I just want to say real quick before we even jump into this, if you get value out of today's episode, please, it would be great if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, left us a comment, like the video. If you are watching or listening on Apple, Google, Spotify, please follow and leave a 5-star review. We would really, really appreciate that. Without further ado, here is the question from Jeremiah. Hi guys, I have never considered myself an alcoholic, but drinking seems to always set me back. I've heard you guys discuss this on the accountability pods and wondering if you can speak more on eliminating alcohol completely versus moderation. Jeremiah, thank you so much for your question. I'm so happy that you asked this question now because I don't even think we've released the pod yet about me quitting smoking weed. But man, this is very timely for me. Obviously, alcohol and weed is very different. But at the same time, it's a vice, right? They're both vices. And ultimately, what you're talking about is, should I eliminate this vice or should I try to moderate this vice? And before we even talk about the differences between moderation and eliminating whatever, one of the things that I've really been thinking about the last few days, last week, maybe 2 weeks, is how do I eliminate my desire for vices in general? Like when I stopped drinking for 75 hard, or for example, or whatever, I still have a desire deep down to have a drink sometimes. I still have a desire, like even though I haven't smoked weed in 9 days, I still have a desire to smoke weed, throughout the day at many different times throughout the day. So what I've really been trying to ask myself is, how do I eliminate that desire at all? And what's been working for me recently is something we talk about all the time, and I'm sure we've hammered it into your brain so much, but having a strong why. Like as soon as I have that craving to smoke, I start thinking, well, here's the reasons I want to smoke because it's going to calm me down. I'm frustrated. I just want to chill out. But the reasons I don't want to smoke are because I want to be clear-headed. I want to have high energy. I want to be able to achieve my highest potential. I want to, operate at level 100. I want to be ready at all times if anything happens, if I get a call, whatever the case may be. And I go on the list of all the reasons I don't want to smoke and all those whys that are so strong. And it's helped me so far. I mean, again, it's only been 9 days, so I can't speak to it as an expert, but it's definitely something that has been helping me in this very recent moment. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say on that, Brad, but
I do. I think this is another topic that we talk about, but training your brain takes a long time. And so if you figure that you essentially have almost a lifetime of what I would say are positive experiences with weed, marijuana. Obviously you kept doing it because you were having a good experience. And so subconsciously, unconsciously, and probably even consciously, because you do have reasons why you like to do it, you've got a lifetime of conditioning that says smoking weed is good. And it's like a habit that I have. And so I think only being 9 days in, you have now meaningfully started the process to unwind that prior conditioning. Because I think the desire doesn't start at the conscious level. It starts somewhere deeper in the brain based on what the brain perceives to be reality, what the past 15 years or whatever it is has taught it about what weed means to you and the role that it plays in your life. And I don't think it's going to take 15 years for you to unwind that desire. I think those things happen much faster. I think they happen in months. And it's just that very few people have the faith, or very few people just have the consistency and the commitment to do something for, months long to really actually change who they are and, more importantly, how they think. And so I think you're at the beginning of a process to retrain yourself. And I think with time, based on how all different types of skills and all different types of mindset principles work, removing and not wanting those vices is going to be it's recircuitry in the brain. It's retraining. And right now you're in the first week of working out. You're not going to be buff yet, but in a month, I bet the desire goes down significantly. I bet in 3 months, you start to see a couple of abs. Like, you think about weed every other day instead of every day, or every third day, or when it shows up in a room, you're like, oh, weed. Okay. But then 6 months from now, it's not even a thought in your mind. You're too mentally fit. It's a different brain, just like you'd have a different body if you worked out every day for 6 months. And so I think there's figuring out what the right thought patterns are, and the tactic that you just provide, list out all the reasons why I don't want it and connect it to a strong why. I think figuring out ways to connect pain to doing it as well, which implicitly you did, but it's like, I cannot perform at my highest level. And one thing to just keep in mind with alcohol and weed, it's not just at the point of intoxication, it's also the days after. No matter what you say, it is impossible that you are operating at the same level you could be without it. It is just the physics of how your mind works. The chemicals are fucked up by the weed or the alcohol. So no matter what you say, your mood is impacted, your cognitive ability is impacted for days after, no matter what you say. And so acknowledge that. And if your true desire, the thing that you hold highest in your heart, is to be the best version of yourself, know that it is at odds with that. And I think that's a simple why you can bring to the table every time you run into a situation where you need to start retraining yourself to pick between doing it and not doing it until you don't have to pick anymore.
Man, that was a great breakdown by Brad. Thank you. And it's, thank you, because that helped me a lot. And sorry, Jeremiah, for totally just hijacking your question and making it about me and my quitting weed at first. But it really is the same thing, right? Like it really is, whether it's weed, alcohol, cocaine, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, some things are more extreme than the other, but at the end of the day, it's a vice and it sets you back. So, and to be honest, I could tell you that alcohol actually affects me way more than weed. Like, I could, again, I'm not going to operate at 100 the next day, but I could get up the next day and do all my stuff. If I drink a lot, I can't even get up the next day and do my stuff. I mean, I can, but it's a way, way tougher struggle. So I would say this, like, exactly like what Brad just said. I mean, if every time we know what's happening, right? You said it's always seems to set you back. So what does it set you back from? Every time I know what it sets me back from. Every time I drink, it sets me off my diet. It sets me off my fitness. It sets me off my business goals. It sets me off my happiness. It sets me off my outlook. And just, Brad, we were talking about this, like after a weekend of drinking, all of a sudden you wake up and you feel like you have no opportunities in life. You just feel like very narrow-minded. And as soon as you have a little bit more clarity, you start to see these opportunities. You start to realize what's possible. But when you're in that moment of a hangover, or after you have set off those chemicals by, introducing alcohol, you feel like you just don't have as many opportunities in life. I don't know how else to say that other than just that. And I've
thought about that conversation more. And I think the way I tried to unpack it is it's low energy versus high energy state. And both weed and alcohol bring you to, especially in the aftermath, and especially alcohol, bring you to a lower energy state. And so it's like, I don't even have the energy to go pursue the things I can't pursue something in an outlook that's lofty when I'm in a state of like low energy created by alcohol. So yeah, I don't even feel the energy that I would need to go have a big outlook on things. It's like I can't even connect doing the action to getting to a big outlook. And so I've been trying to work backwards as to like why that is. Cause you're right. I've woken up on Mondays a million times, and it's just like, I can only see my own 2 feet right in front of me. Like the big goals I have for the world, like disappear overnight. And then it takes time away from alcohol to get them back. And I actually think it's just like me getting the energy, the natural state of energy back to be ready to actually go pursue those things. So sorry, that was a tangent alert, but that was how I've been thinking about what we talked about.
No, that makes so much sense. And I completely agree with you. And I felt that in the last 9 days, my energy levels have been way higher. I've seen way more opportunity, and just being able to identify that is very powerful in itself. So when you ask yourself, Jeremiah, what is it setting you back from? How important are these setbacks to you? Like if you're being set back in your diet, in your fitness, in your outlook, in your business, in any and all of these things, how important are those things to you? If they're more important to you than drinking, then maybe you eliminate alcohol completely. Like, I guess your question is based around, eliminating alcohol completely versus moderation. I think that there is obviously no better way than to eliminate it completely. Is there a way to moderate? Sure. Are you going to be your 100% version when you are drinking, even if you're moderating? No. So ask yourself, what is more important to you? Moderating your alcohol use or operating at your 100% level at all times? And based on that, you can kind of get your answer, immediately. Not that it's going to be easy to do, but at least it will be easy to identify what you actually want in your life. Do you actually want to drink and be able to moderate yourself, but knowing you're going to have a setback every single time you do it, even with moderation? Or do you want to just commit to being abstinent and being the 100% version of yourself at all times? So it's a really important question to ask yourself. Maybe the answer is you do want to have moderation and you do want to, enjoy alcohol and whatever the case may be. But you got to at least have that clarity of what you want and what is your priority. And maybe that priority changes. Maybe it's moderation right now and you continue having setbacks for the next 3 months. And then you decide, you know what? That was the wrong move. I need to eliminate it completely because now I want to be the 100% version of myself.
I think setting that frame of reference of what would the life look like without it completely is an important place to start. And then how does that jive with your priorities? Because if your priority is, let's just say, to like engage as socially, and I would actually argue, I would have someone argue against this because I hate to set the tone that you need to have alcohol to be social, but maybe there are some arguments where, at least in your current state, the one where you haven't figured out how to be the best version of yourself and have fun without alcohol, goes into a social situation, one where you want to build bonds with people and connect, and alcohol is a way for you to do that. Where does that priority stand up against your bigger picture priorities of, and maybe not bigger picture priorities, but your other priorities of what you're trying to get out in life? And so I think it's important to start with, what would it look like to take alcohol out completely? That's going to force you to ask yourself, what are my priorities? And if it sifts to the top that there are situations where you want to consume alcohol in moderation and those priorities are at the top of the list, again, I think you could always argue that alcohol doesn't need to be a part of that equation. But for someone who's listening and doesn't buy into that, then sure.
That was a really good example.
Yeah, I think you just need to consistently evaluate over time, like, what is important to you. Because I'm really talking to myself right now. Like, I can tell you that 10 years ago, being the life of the party and being super social was like the most important, having so many friends and all, like, that was the most important thing in the world to me. And 5 years ago, it was still really important, and maybe just as important. And 3 years ago, that started to change. And now it's not that I don't want friends, but and to have fun social situations. But every time that I have gone of late, I walk away with the question of like, what is this costing me in the context of what I really now know that I want? And it's pushed me to a new level of moderation is first what I would say. So you keep asking this question, and maybe you're not going to fix it today, Jeremiah, but you'll put yourself on a path where all of a sudden you're doing it less. Like that's where I'm at, is I'm just doing it way less. Like there's no weeknight drinking. It's a special occasion thing. And then even now when I'm leaving those, I'm like, is this really, like, is the cost benefit still there? And like that switch is flipping for me. And so, yeah, I challenge you to go through the same exercise of just being highly reflective about what your priorities are. And every time you drink, reevaluate your priorities and look inward for what it is that you want. You know that it's taking away from it. Don't be blind that it's taking away from it. And I think you'll probably find yourself edging in the right direction. You're always making the right decision in the context of what your priorities are right now. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. But it's key to be clear on what those priorities are and give yourself the chance to have that clarity.
Man, Jeremiah, thank you for giving me and Brad like a therapy session today. Honestly,
100%.
Because you said you were talking to yourself, but you're talking to me too, man. I mean, that's like that's my number one thing that I always say. It's like, it's hard I cannot drink every day, but when I'm in a social setting where everybody's drinking and it's a business related or something like that, that's when I always think, oh, I want to drink. Like, it's going to help me build bonds. It's going to help me do this. All the things that you said are all things that I've told myself over and over again for a long time. And maybe it's partially true. Maybe it's not at all. But what is true, no matter what, is what you said about measure that priority versus your other priorities and which one is even more important. And that hit me. So, no, I think that was great, man. Yeah, I appreciate
I'll leave it with one other thing is like, yeah, you're right. Maybe if you wanted to ingratiate yourself to those people, because the business thing has always been a big one for me. I always chicken out at like stuff like that where I'm like, whoa, I'm like not going to be able to, bond with people because I'm not drinking. Maybe that's true because some people will be offended on the other end of that. One, I would challenge you, are you going into business with the right people if they're going to be offended by you not drinking with them? Just
Great
as
point.
like maybe in that instance, it would benefit you to be in business with that person. But if you took a step back and said, how am I crafting my entire life? And do I want to be spending time and doing business with people that like, that's part of their priority system is to judge people who aren't drinking or to let it impact their relationship. So that's a question you want to ask yourself. And then two, what if you got to 90% of the bond building without the alcohol? What if you figure out like that's a skill in and of itself? Sit at the table, be gregarious, be interested in other people and curious in them. And can you get to 90% of where if alcohol truly let you get to 100%, can you get to 90 without it? And with that, like the 10% that you lost out on, weigh that against the gains you have from not drinking altogether and what that gives you for your broader priorities. And so again, I'm really just talking to myself right now, but I think these are conversations I would push you to have with yourself, Jeremiah, when your feet are getting held to the fire.
I think you're talking to a ton of people right now because I have this exact same conversation with people all the time, and especially a lot over the last 6 months. And man, this is great. It's what a great question too, for very timely.
Very timely.
These episodes are going to come out right next to each other too. So that's perfect. But all right, well, we do have an audience exercise for you, Jeremiah. Basically, you know how alcohol hurts you. You know how it sets you back. We've already determined that it could set you back from your fitness, your nutrition, your business, your outlook on life, just all sorts of things. But there's a reason you're still drinking. So what I think you should do, what we think you should do, is write down the ways that alcohol helps you. Maybe it helps your social anxiety. Maybe it helps you build those bonds like we're talking about. Maybe whatever you think is the way that it helps you. And number one, challenge yourself on, is this really helping me? And use the power of visualization and imagine you doing those things successfully without alcohol. And just see what that feels like. Just start there because like Brad said earlier, nothing's going to happen today, but get yourself on the path of thinking about what your priorities are. do I really need alcohol for these things that it so-called helps me with? And visualize yourself doing those things that you think it helps you with without alcohol completely, and see how that feels, and see how that affects the other areas of your life, and see how that gets you back on track with no setbacks, and see how much more exponential growth you're going to have in the future by not doing that. So just start with that visualization and see where that takes you. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Brad, but
It's like how they talk about like how athletes train for sports, and baseball players imagine themselves hitting the ball before they actually go up to the plate and hit the ball. This is the same exact thing. You can imagine yourself sitting at a table at a bar. You're cracking jokes. Everybody's laughing. You're the life of the party. Like, live that moment ahead of going to do it, all while not drinking, by the way. Live that moment, and you'll condition your mind to prepare you for that better than... It's just a tool that you can use to get prepared for those moments until eventually it's just second nature.
Nice. All right. Well, I think that was great. I really enjoyed that episode. Like I said, that was like therapy for me. So
Totally.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I appreciate your question, and keep us posted. If you need anything else, you want to ask another question, let us know. You can always email that in to support@mindsetmogul.com, or you can ask it below in the YouTube comments if you are on YouTube. Please, if you got value out of this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribed, liked, commented, follow us on Apple, Google, Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. See you next time. Goodbye.
Take care.